UFC fighter Dan Hooker is bisexual. We have come to find out. Now, this is insane news. I was at work this morning, 6 in the morning. Check Twitter. Dan Hooker's gay. His mistress exposed him. Now, we're going to get into that today. Obviously, Dan Hooker probably isn't full-on homosexual based on the story, but the dude likes to get it on. Where do we start here? So, I guess I'll preface with this. Her reasoning to get in the situation. So, these rich guys, whether they're MMA or not, typically we saw with the Sopranos, they have a gulma. They have a second woman. The wife just isn't the only one. There's going to be probably one or more girlfriends. And that's what happened here. So Dan Hooker back in late 2022, I'm not going to play this video out loud because she's going on for about 3 minutes straight, so you can just watch her face move, but I'll explain. Back in 2022, this woman was a stripper. Dan Hooker met her, fancied her, and he, took her out of the strip club and bought her these gifts, got her what she wanted, treated her like a wife, and I don't know how he was treating his wife and daughter. And his wife knew about this. Like, it's an accepted practice. Just these guys that make money, they're going to want more than one outlet. And not only did he outgrow his wife's love, he outgrew women's love. But she said she stopped the relationship because he cheated on her with a man. And she had a lot of claims and evidence to back this up. So kind of hard for Dan to really defend anything here besides just bad behavior, being a cheater. So yeah, she goes on to say that Dan was rather interesting when it came to the bedroom. He, on FaceTime, showed her him getting an adult product that leans for male satisfaction is what I'll say to keep it PG. Probably not. I guess a bit of funny, irony here is when the meme came out of Dan Prostituta. When you look up Dan's name in Italian, Marvin Vittori posted this. Kind of was foreshadowing here. I mean, what was going to happen. His former prostitute, I guess, hooker turned mistress. They were okay. They were together. And then she turns out outing him as, I guess, a bisexual man. He was allegedly, meeting other guys. And there's nothing in this photo, but it's just a bad photo. So I'm going to put myself here. Yeah. So what they found is, I'll move my head just a little bit. Well, I can... Yeah, there you go. So they found what they believe is his grinder. I don't know what app they use. I don't know if it's different over there. That's just the one gay app I know that exists. So they allegedly found his burner account, Chill Guy, aka I assume that stands for like Auckland or something like that. 37. I think that matches his age, and of course in the media, that looks like Dan Hooker. I'm not gonna move the border much further down because he does appear to be naked. I don't think anything's in this photo. It's very blurry, but that is Dan Hooker. And whether this is somebody setting it up, like, I'm waiting to see Dan's response. But outside of that, this is pretty solid evidence. She also had photos of messages that I will not be showing due to their graphic nature, but it was, again, homosexual. That was what the conversation was based on. So just absolutely insane behavior. And I want to go ahead and preface, there's nothing wrong with being gay. If any MMA fans hate Strickland, not Strickland, it's because he's in the headlines too, and I can't wait to see what he says about this. But if any MMA fans are shitting on Dan, like, you can shit on him for being a cheater. That's deplorable behavior. I don't support cheating on his wife, even though that's technically normal for them over there. Let me get off this page, Jesus. So I can move my fat head. Like, I don't support any of that behavior, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with him being gay or just swinging that way. I mean, it sucks that he has a wife and kid. Like, I don't know why he would make such a big commitment if he felt that way. Maybe the money and power got to him. We see that money tends to do this to people, but an absolutely insane story. You never think a guy like Dan Hooker would be gay, and some people are saying it makes sense now that they see it. Like, they never thought about it, but now that it's out, it makes sense. People are saying that he definitely fucked Izzy. I'm not gonna make any claims here, but it's just an unfortunate situation. Obviously, I'll still support Dan Hooker as a fighter. He's fun. Him being gay has nothing to do with it. I'm seeing memes about Arman and Islam realizing why Dan Hooker puts himself on bottom position against his opponent so much. And that clip of Dan Hooker saying he's got 9 inches for Patty is not aging too well, because maybe he genuinely meant it. Who knows? But again, I mean, a crazy story here. Dan Hooker cheating on his wife with a mistress, which is accepted, I guess. And then him cheating on this mistress. And she said it herself. She's a 5'1" baddie, she called herself. And Dan was cheating on her with men. And you're welcome to look into this. We've yet to hear anything out of Dan Hooker. I've been checking his Instagram as well as his Twitter. Obviously, this is like breaking news if you were kind of hiding this. And I don't know what's going through his head. I really hope he doesn't make any bad decisions to himself or others. Obviously, I'm super against cheating. Shame on Dan Hooker for doing this, but I don't want any MMA fans or any slander for him just liking dudes. Like, we can make jokes about it, like Talbot and stuff, but anybody genuinely hating Dan for this is, you got something going on there. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's bad that he was cheating, but it's just insane. I love this sport, how insane it is. A guy like Dan Hooker, a guy who has always been up there for a BMF fight people are talking about. He's, a mainstay. He's funny. He's just a funny, like, scrapper. You never think a guy like that is going to have sugar in the tank. Usually they kind of give it away. But with this coming out, it just kind of flips the MMA community up on its head. If anybody is truly trashing him, you're kind of a loser in a way. And it's funny. But it's also like, come on, Dan, what are we doing here? You have a wife and kid. Set a better example. It's deplorable behavior. And I don't know if he was always like swung that way, but for him to have a wife, a kid, and not only already have a mistress, which I think sets a horrible example for his daughter, but to then cheat on that with a man, I think sets an even worse example just as a person. I don't know what Dan Hooker's going to say about this. I don't know if his friends know. I assume not. I don't think if his wife or kid or anybody else knew, he would just randomly tell his boys. I hope nothing, bad happens to him. Obviously, he should get whatever comes his way for being a cheater. But, like, if he gets a divorce and his daughter's not too fond of him, that's what you get for cheating, dude. But if anyone else is hating on him for just having those tendencies, then shame on you. But insane news. I love the jokes here. It's hilarious. The Dan Hooker files. I've been thinking of titles for this video the whole time, and I think I know what I'm going to go with, but we'll see. But again, if there's any other details that I failed to miss here, like, if there's any details that I failed to miss, let me know. Obviously, if anything else huge comes out, I might make a video or, a community post, or follow me on Twitter at the MMA Dummy. I post pretty often on there. But again, stupid decision-making by Dan Hooker, but kind of insane news as it is. I hope he doesn't get too much backlash for just doing that. But again, if there's any news, please let me know. Let me know how you feel about this in the comments. I saw also they're probably going to make Ian Gary versus Islam Makhachev. That's huge, but I'm not going to make a video on that unless some other news comes out that I can kind of tag along with it. But like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know your reaction, where like what you're doing when you figure this out. I hope Dan Hooker's in a good headspace, though. Like, I hope he doesn't make any bad decisions from this. I know this can really mean a lot to people. I mean, Jeff Molina was forced because of this to come out. But, yeah, man, crazy being an MMA fan. It's always something new, but see ya.